When I was in my 20s, I rented a little house and I put a studio in the basement. And that studio generated thousands of dollars every week. It was my job to go get the clients and to manage the producers that worked for me. But are home studios like this still a viable business in 2025? Are there still budgets? Is there enough work left out there? And if so, what are the best strategies right now to get a piece of that pie?
I'm not going to tell you how I did this with my studio because that was over 10 years ago, and obviously things are pretty different than they were back then. So instead, you need to learn this from a studio that is currently doing this in 2025.
This is Nick Warner Media. Nick built this studio by himself, so a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into this place, and a lot of money too. It's located in Los Angeles, and Nick has real credits and knows how to run a business. He literally has an MBA. For many years, this studio had been very profitable, full of clients and projects, and even some years was earning six figures. Until one day, it just stopped. Nick reached out to me and told me that his studio was potentially going to fail if he didn't change something really soon. So you might be asking, well, what happened? See, back in the day, there used to be this big website called studiotime.io. I'll let Nick explain what it does.
It was kind of like Airbnb, but meant for studios, so you could rent it out hourly, or if you wanted to, daily, and hire an engineer if you wanted, or just use the space. So yeah, with about a week notice, they closed down and the website was no more. And I was realizing in that moment how much I was relying on that website. Maybe a third of my new clientele was coming from there, but because of the long-term clients that I was able to turn into from that, I realized it was much more than just a third that I'm now missing.
See, Nick made a common mistake that a lot of modern producers and studios make. They rely on one single source like SoundBetter, Fiverr, an assistant, or their manager to bring in the majority of their work. But the moment that stops working, they are screwed. And for Nick, I mean literally screwed. Because unlike my studio, he actually owns this property himself. He saved up his entire life to buy his dream house and build this studio. If it didn't work now, then he'd be forced to sell the house. I've advised over 700 music producers at this point, and I gotta say that this situation was probably one of the most serious financially.
I quickly realized how serious of a change my business was impacted right away. And I knew that if I didn't act fast, that I was going to be in some serious trouble. And so with the savings gone, I didn't even have really that thing to fall back on. I had a few months, but I knew that this was probably going to take more than a few months if I just kept going about the same way that I had been.
Nick hired me to help him fix this, and I quickly built him a strategy that targeted 4 key areas: branding, business model, client acquisition, and future-proofing. I'll explain these step by step, and I want you to look for new ideas here because just improving one of these 4 areas can make a massive impact on your own business, whether it's a big studio or a small one. When most producers hear the word branding, they immediately think about their portfolio or what their website says and what their Instagram profile looks like. But that wasn't really Nick's problem. His problem was this. Have you ever heard of the phrase, jack of all trades, master of none? Basically, it means that you're pretty good at a lot of different things versus really specializing in one thing. And that's not always bad, but in Nick's case, it caused him to say yes to like every different type of audio-related job he could get his hands on. I'm sure many of you can relate to that. But he was doing this out of necessity, not because he wanted to or should. And what that did was it created this internal conflict when it came to Nick's branding. He really didn't know what he was, which meant he wasn't doubling down on his true strengths, which is where the money is.
So yeah, after doing all those different things, it was coming down to making that foundation as a producer and not doing tons of different things here and there, trying to just focus on one main thing and make that my bread and butter. And for me, that was producing. And in combination with that, that was changing things from less hourly work and more into project-based long-term contracts that were not just an hour here, an hour there, but span several months, potentially even years on albums.
And that leads us right into the next part of the strategy, his business model. Nick operated as more of a studio business instead of a producer business, which meant that all of his clients would just randomly book studio time and pay him by the hour whenever they felt like it. Again, not always a bad thing, but it just wasn't what was best for Nick. Having to book enough small engagements every single month to meet his expenses felt like death by 1,000 paper cuts. And the more efficient he got, the less he would earn per project, essentially being financially punished for doing a better job faster. So I told him to start billing project rates, meaning that the artist would pay one flat fee for Nick's taste and expertise, even if it took him less time to complete the project.
For single songs, things can be anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000. Really just depends on what's going on with that particular project, as well as royalty type things. If they have a following or if they already have momentum, then that could change the price. Then for longer term projects, it comes out to something similar. Sometimes there's a cut if there's a full album type thing, but generally that's the range.
So let's break down what Nick just said there, because it's actually an important part of this new model. The flat fee he makes per song is an advance, not a work for hire studio fee, meaning that after the artist recoups what they paid for production cost, Nick also gets to share on the royalties. You'll see the benefits from that at the end of the story. And you may have caught the other thing that he said in the clip about doing more long-term projects. But what does that actually mean? Well, after Nick completes one song with a new artist, and they're super stoked about it, I taught him a framework to evolve that relationship into an ongoing project where he would lock in with the artist to build a larger body of work over time. What this looks like, practically speaking, is that the artist is committing to multiple releases each year, and in return, Nick will split up the total production costs monthly or quarterly to make it more affordable and predictable for his best clients. And the benefits of doing this were immediate.
I found that instead of doing hourly, that those longer term projects made planning financially and just my day-to-day time much more smooth, consistent, and much more in my hands rather than waiting for the client to hit me up, say that they have time. Then it's much more scheduled, just a lot more consistency.
But we still had a long road ahead of us, because a great business model does nothing if you don't know how to get new clients in the first place. And since most of Nick's past clients came from one source, a website that got shut down, we had to quickly build a system that would replace it. Now, this part of the strategy might sound like a contradiction, because I just told you that we had Nick shift from charging hourly to project rates. However, when it came to getting clients, we actually found that hourly rates were an easy way to get new artists into his studio. And if we could just get them into the studio, then Nick could transition those sessions into a single and then into a longer term project. We didn't need to do anything complex or expensive. All we needed was one simple way to get new artists into a studio, because once they were in, they usually became a client. I determined that good old-fashioned outreach and networking would probably be the fastest way to start. Nick was a little skeptical because he had tried outreach before and it didn't work. So I had him test a few different approaches to find out what would actually work for him this time.
The initial outreach message that gets sent out to them, I think I was not doing that effectively before. It was way too vague, didn't come across professional, came across much more as a fan rather than a producer, a professional who's trying to work with them. So refining that was a huge step. Then navigating the conversation thereafter, of having a goal in mind throughout the conversation, kind of steered it in a direction the whole time, asking particular questions so that I could understand where they're at, where they're headed, and know what to say in response to get what they want out of the situation as well.
His new approach to outreach was dialed in, but now we needed to find artists to actually reach out to. We tested a few different places, and this is what ended up working best for Nick.
Threads has been super helpful. Finding people that are of your genre, the algorithm does a really good job of finding and feeding you people that you're interested in or are already along the genre that you're working in. Another big one is Vamper. It's an app. Finding people there too that are purely looking for producers has been a huge help.
So let's take a look at Nick's client acquisition strategy all at once so that it's clear for you. First, he finds artists either using Vamper or writing targeted posts on Threads and getting comments. Then he reaches out to them via Instagram, gets to know them, and offers a studio tour or small hourly session if they have anything they need to finish. If it makes sense to, then he will transition that session into working on their next single and charge a project rate. And finally, once there is enough trust and bond, he offers a long-term project scenario with a recurring retainer fee and shared royalties. All that sounds great, right? But there's one final piece of this puzzle, and we have to be realistic about everything. Nick already experienced what happens when your business just all of a sudden dries up. So he has the opportunity now, while things are stable, to prepare for the future just in case that nightmare situation ever happens again.
Any of the extra profit that I have left over, I put into investments in some shape or form. For me, at first, it was this house, but also stock market too. But I'm just really conscious of my finances and try to be as conservative as I can with that and save as much as I can. That sense of security relieves a lot of anxiety. If anything major happened in my life, I wouldn't be completely screwed from day one. I have time to figure out. And not only does that help with just normal life stuff, but also with work too, not having that pressure of I need this next deal, I need this next song contract to come through, or I need this next sync placement to work out.
Nick has been running this strategy now for over 2 years, so we know that it's proven and that it's consistent, but it's also led to some other really cool wins for his career.
My best month was a little over $16,000. That was because two things happened. One, just a normal good month, but the bonus there was one of my clients got a 6-figure record deal, and I owned about 10% of that deal. I was also able to secure 4 full-length album deals, which was amazing for a sense of security and reliability. In the past 2 years, I've also gotten about 20 million streams on my work. It's a night and day difference from before to now. I feel so much more in control over my day-to-day, my career, my goals. My whole path here is so much more straightforward. I have a focus of what I can do or what I want to do, and I can say no to plenty of projects, and I'm not reliant on just some other person coming to me. If I need more money or I need more work, I know what to do. I just need to go do it myself.
If you're a producer who needs a better strategy to grow your business and get consistent clients, then click the link in the description. I've done this for a decade with over 700 music producers ranging from small studios to Grammy-winning veterans. Or if you're just doing some research, then this next video will show you how to build out your own client acquisition pipeline in more detail.